station.
Welcome to Water Talk with Paul the Waterman, brought to you by Water Pros. Paul the Waterman is Colorado's expert on all things related to the water we use and drink in our homes. Have you ever thought about where your water actually comes from? Is it safe to drink? Is it harmful to my health, my skin, my hair? Paul the Waterman knows water, and he has the answers. Haystack Help Radio proudly presents Water Talk. Now here's your host, Scott Watley, and owner of Water Pros, Paul the Waterman.
Old Ann and I, with throats burned dry and souls that cry for water, water, cool water, clear water.
And we'd like to welcome you to Water Talk, brought to you by Water Pros. 303-862-5554 is the number. Paul the Waterman joins us once again.
Hey, how are you today?
What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm telling you
You
what.
made it through the week.
We did, barely.
Oh,
so 225 is like, people don't pay attention, right? Some, rushing to get here on time to the studio, all the serious business we're doing, and this guy in this white SUV is just like pulling right over. I'm honking the horn. I had to get over to the, the yellows, the left side shoulder,
right,
for him to avoid me, and I'm like, it's amazing. So it's definitely,
There was a wreck here right close to the station when I came this morning, and man, it was backed up.
It's crazy. So I want to start off, today and give you, I saw something 2 days ago that just blew my mind.
Okay.
A lady in Lakewood spent $20,000 on a water system, on an auto valve. And what they did is they went to her home. Company's no longer in business. And they did that hour and a half.
From last year?
It was 5 years. 5 years ago.
5 years, okay.
So they're out of business. That she financed it. And the problem is that the equipment she purchased, it's an auto valve. Auto valve went out of business, and a company called Pentair's purchased that, and so they're mass producing them. But it wasn't $20,000 worth of equipment, but it was the dog and pony show demo that we've talked about, where they sit at our house for hour and a half, 2 hours, and they scared her enough that she says, "Oh, I need this system." And it was a water softener backwash and carbon unit with reverse osmosis, $20,000. And in the state of Colorado, you have to be a licensed plumber through the Department of Regulatory, Authority. And in order for you to finance, you have to get a retail, sales license, finance license, a UCC license. In order for you to do that, you have to have a license basically to sell water softeners. And then, you have to be the licensed plumber. And I know for a fact right now that there's companies out there that, one of them is financing water softeners through a vacuum cleaner retail sales license. Is that legal? No. But, until someone, wants to pay attention,
sure,
and to catch them. And so I want to say this because it's just, it to my heart, I felt sorry for her. I gave her some pointers what she could do with the finance company to try to help the situation. But $20,000, I mean, that's just taking advantage. Her husband's sick, it's a medical issue. So, they're basically, she's looking at it thinking that the quality of the water is bad. And so they're, they financed a monthly payment. So a monthly payment on $20,000 is, $300-$400 a month, most likely. I mean, it's a car payment.
Sure.
And the system is, the auto valve, it's a very complex valve. It's got a cam, like a camshaft, and that camshaft rotates and pushes on copper connectors or copper leads that cause the valve to go to, a certain position during the backwash, the rinse. And
that sounds complicated.
It is complicated. It is complicated. And again, that I call it the auto troll. When you have a cover on it and you look at it, to me, it kind of looks like the alien, the alien monster. So, it went out of business for a reason, in my opinion, because it was just a really, complicated valve, and it had issues as far as, operating, for extended period of time. So when I got there, they had hard water, the chlorine.
So you did your test.
Did my test. They had hard water, had high chlorine content. And so, I can help her, with the chlorine content, but, it's like that autotrol valve clearly wasn't working. So the only way, and I don't know if it's going to work this way, but the only way I told her it would function is, she has to manually hold the regen button down so to go, cycle. I said, probably about every 5 days you should do this. And I found out doing some research, that particular model was supposed to have a sensor from the control head to the resin, and then it's supposed to backwash on its own based upon the sensing, the sensor technology that clearly wasn't working.
Wow.
And so, if
she couldn't have been very happy.
No, she wasn't. And I felt,
Yeah.
I feel horrible. And then when she told me, how much she spent, I felt horrible. So I say this to spread the word, folks that are listening to us, and this is my concern. Remember a couple of years, I called it the Rahm Emanuel effect. He always used to say, take advantage of a tragedy, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought a couple of years ago when you and I started really digging into the problem with with water supply, the PFAS situation, I said somebody is going to, they're going to try to take advantage of this and try to charge an obscene amount of money, because $20,000 to me for water filtration, for a water softener and a backwashing carbon filter and a reverse osmosis is obscene. It absolutely is. I'm a third of that.
There's no telling what she's paying if she's paying interest.
Interest, right. So you could tell I'm frustrated about it because it's not right. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what happens in my industry, is that there's companies out there right now that are trying to, price water filter systems and water filtration systems in par with the furnace and air conditioner replacement.
Wow.
And so I ask you this question, how can a company that sells, systems for $20,000 no longer be in business? Mm-hmm. What's that all about? So, that's frustrating at best. So I just want to put that out there. Spread the word. With Water Pros, we have a sale right now that we're doing a, point of use reverse osmosis with a smart computer water softener for only $3,500.
Oh, word.
So, we got that. And Scott, the one thing that concerns me is because the water quality is not getting any better. And, once the EPA, decides to take the veil off these unregulated contaminants and be truthful, people are going to be extremely
It is
scared.
going to present a panic then. It really will.
Yeah.
But, a legit one.
But,
once, like you say, once they start testing for all the things they should be testing for.
You and I know right now that it's an absolute fact that there's pharmaceuticals in our water supply. We know that.
Right.
What kind of pharmaceuticals and the level of the pharmaceuticals is what we don't know because they don't test for it. Mm-hmm. But, that gentleman that we had, was it about a year ago, that engineers, water reservoirs, right? He told us. Mm-hmm. Every major over-the-counter medication is in our water. And then a couple weeks ago, around Memorial Day weekend, I talked about, was it Nantucket? They tested the water supply and high levels of cocaine.
Right.
Pharmaceutical. So,
when they go to telling you to eat only like one serving of fish. What is that telling you?
The PFAS contamination is huge, isn't it? So there's a lot going on. And I wanted to bring this back again. This is from the EPA National Primary Drinking Water Regulations. And you can look this up yourself. One of the things I wanted to cover again was, what's in our water supply based just on the disinfectant practices themselves. And so disinfection byproducts that are in your water. So what that means is this is 100% in the water because of how they disinfect the water. And so, chlorite, it's a byproduct of drinking water disinfection. It can create anemia in infants and young children that affect the nervous systems. And basically, you shouldn't have, non-detectable amounts, but it's there. And so, at least they have to report that. They have no choice because it's a disinfectant byproduct.
Right.
The other thing that, has a concern for folks that's in the water supply, and it's undeniable, and it's there in every glass of water. If you don't have a point of use reverse osmosis drinking water system, you're drinking this, and that's trihalomethanes. And trihalomethanes are a byproduct of the disinfection process. So when you add the chlorine and the chloramine to the water, and with trihalomethanes, you mix with the organic products, the plant-based products that are in the water, that creates trihalomethanes. And so that can affect the liver, the kidneys, the central nervous system, and it's increased risk of cancer.
Mm-hmm. So when we say this is a medical issue, and if I wish we had like a camera where we could show people all the, different ailments that all these different things cause. But and they're serious deals,
And so Castle Rock is 35% reusable water, and pretty soon it's going to be higher than that because of the growth. So the amount, I think, of the disinfection byproducts is going to increase because they have to add more chlorine content for, the recyclable water usage.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not, see, the thing that gets me that they haven't studied, and we haven't even talked about this, is that when you recycle water, what's the concentration level of other contaminants going to, what are that going to be? Because it's a buildup, right? Common sense is a dying commodity in today's world. So, are they stopping to think, wait a minute, so we really need to know what our pharmaceutical levels are. And I don't think they're going to be truthful until there is some sort of, illness, an outbreak in illness caused by, the medications in the water supply. And that's something that is going to be unfortunately done when there's a neighborhood or, people that go to the doctor and, they have an issue. And what's this issue? Well, it could be, young kids growing breasts because of, hormones in the drinking water. You got teenagers, that's just an absolute fact. And those people who choose to augment their body, puberty blockers, that's, absolutely going to be in the water supply. There's estrogen absolutely in the water supply.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that's there. And people who, as you get older, with men and women, as they get older now are taking hormone therapy.
Sure.
And so that's, in our water supply. Women, who are getting, to the menopause stage, they're prescribed hormones, through that process. Absolutely, it's going to be in our water supply. And then we have, all the antibiotics that are in the water supply. How many times now have we read, a scenario where, antibiotic resistant, ailments, they're increasing. I forget the name, but Scott, but that flesh-eating bacteria, which is antibiotic resistant.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So what we learned is we have bacteria and viruses in the water, and when they chlorinate it, it's a sterilizer. So I thought it killed the water, the virus in the bacteria, and it didn't. So that means that I think over a period of time, they're going to have to increase that chloramine in the water supply, because I think it's safe to say that those certain bugs are going to be resistant. And the case in point is those brain-eating amoebas.
Right.
People in Florida and Texas, doing nasal rinsing with tap water, got a brain-eating amoeba, and they lost their life, and that's pretty scary. So that means that, whatever amount of chlorine content was there didn't kill it.
Right.
And, amoeba's different, than viruses and bacteria. I don't know. It's microorganisms. And so that chlorine content clearly didn't sterilize them, or, what happens there. I wish I knew. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it does happen, then it's like that has to be alarming. So, eventually, a whole house water filtration system, Scott, is most likely going to be, water softener, whole house ultraviolet light filtration that basically is that secondary line of defense that, can zap the amoebas.
And we've never spent much time on that one product there. So how does that hook up? How does that work?
That's a great question. Thank you. So basically, it's a long cylinder, about 2 feet long, and it has a UV bulb.
Okay.
And the UV bulb has a power pack supplied to it, and the rating on a UV is measured in joules. Okay, that's electric measurement. So you want to have a UV bulb that's rated high enough where it could handle a flow rate of about 10 to 15 gallons per minute.
Okay.
Reason why is that you want to make sure that it has enough energy to zap that virus if you have people in your home, using 2 showers and getting a glass of water. That's what flow rate's used for. So most people, have between 9 to 15 gallons per minute provided to them by the municipality. So you want to have a UV, and what a UV does, the ultraviolet rays sterilize the virus and bacteria. So, that's just an added measure. I have one in my home because, I have to do, nasal rinses, so I'm not taking any chances. So, you've got the whole house conditioner, you got the ultraviolet light, the reverse osmosis. Even now, Scott, we have technology that we could add an ultraviolet light to reverse osmosis unit. So if you don't want to do the whole house, we have what we call point of use UV that zaps your RO drinking water. Sterilization. Think about this. Sterilization is something that they do in the doctor's and the dentist's office so we don't get diseases and infections. But when you've got a water filtration system at home or a drinking water filter at home, if you change your filters yourself, are you sterilizing? Are you in a sterile environment for those drinking water filters? Most likely not.
Probably not.
Right? And that's our drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's just, it's all part of the bigger picture that, I think, we really need to address, but we're not going to address it until, the EPA,
until they have to.
Right. And 1,4-dioxin. 1,4-dioxin is another contaminant that you and I have been talking about. The problem with that is that they're telling us it's there, but it's still on the unregulated contaminated list.
Mm-hmm.
So that means other municipalities don't test it. So that water quality report that we get,
right,
they're not being honest
Mm-hmm.
because they're not telling us all that's in the water. So you get a false sense of security.
Right.
So, I think this is bigger than the Epstein files, if you want my honest opinion, is the EPA has to tell us.
That's a statement. All right, yeah.
The EPA, be honest and,
Right.
tell us what's really in the drinking water.
Sure. Paul the Waterman is with us. His Water Pros, 303-862-5554. Now, was there one other customer
Yes, thank
topic you were wanting to bring up?
So we were at did an install today in Castle Rock off of Wolfensberger, and that whole area can have high, iron content. So, from Wolfensberger Road down to Perry Park, and then if you go south on Perry Park, to Sedalia, that whole area there, iron is common, turbidity could be an issue. But what really got me, again, is a fella had high iron content, but what happened, what they did for his home is they didn't test the water to see what the iron content was. So he wanted a storage for water in case something happened with the well pump. Then he wasn't without water. So he told him, hey, put a storage tank in there for me. He wanted a pump that gave him constant pressure instead of what a pressure tank does. But the problem is that because they didn't test the water, the iron that was in his water supply oxidized in that cistern or holding tank, and over the years it's just a orange sludge iron mess. So then he puts in tries to put in a filtration system or backwashing iron system, and that didn't work. And so between the holding tank and the wrong type of filtration system he had installed, he had nothing but nasty iron water throughout his whole entire home. Wow. And so you could see, the process of iron oxidizing in that holding tank, and it's orange. And then when you disconnect the current filtration system he had, you could see the inlet and outlets were coated in iron.
But you got him fixed up.
We got him fixed up. So again, common sense is a dying commodity, but people, water filtration is a plug and play. There's a science to it. You have to understand what the water chemistry is, so then you can make the right recommendation for the filtration product for to be used.
Sure. All right, let's run through your special offer.
Okay.
All right, $3,500
$3,500
installed.
Installed is a smart computer, 32,000 grain water softener with a point of use reverse osmosis.
Wow.
All in.
All in.
All in.
Man, and that poor lady could have got 6 of those.
Just I know, right?
I mean, really.
Really, seriously,
Yeah.
for 20 grand. I mean, that's. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but I think what happens is when people get taken advantage of. I take pride in this industry. Water treatment, water filtration. In my heart, it's a necessity.
Sure.
So when you see people out there that, if the company wants to do a dog and pony show, and what I mean is that, instead of telling you what's in your water and how they're going to fix it, they're doing a series of tests to create an emotion that this is poison. You really don't want to drink this, because that's exactly what they say. Mm-hmm. This could cause cancer. That's exactly what they say.
Right.
And that's where it's unethical. The Water Quality Association, the WQA.org, has a code of conduct and ethics that people like me that join that organization pledge to follow. And so you just want to make sure, that, you're doing something, that gives credibility. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm sure every industry has their fair share of nutsy cuckoos that,
right.
Want to take advantage of the situation, and you can't police everything. But it's like, I just felt obligated. And I say this because I feel completely horrible for her, and I just don't want other people to, end up in that situation.
Right. And there's a lot of companies. I'm not saying a company's bad because they may do several other things, but I want to make it clear this is all you do.
That's all I do.
Okay.
Yeah, water treatment, water filtration is everything. That's I've done it, for over 35 years now. And so it's something that I really, it's a passion, maybe longer, to be very candid with you. It's just, when you get to be 56 years old, time is just, right?
Yeah. Every day's a new day, right? We can't remember anything.
So, one of the things I encourage people is, do your homework. And then, and run if someone wants to tell you, 30. Mm-hmm. So, it starts out at $20,000 and it starts down, then eventually they get down to, well, okay, we can do it for $12,000. And
right.
Run.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's, I don't know what to say. It's just not ethical.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, we'll get calls where people got taken with something, and I'll say, look, let me just ask you a question. And, I know from John Rush to, Kim, myself, the local host here, when we have sponsors, these are people we know and we trust. And, if something does go wrong for some reason, we're with these people every week and we can get together and get a solution. And I just asked her, I said, why wouldn't you at least have somebody out from Haystack or, like I say, from John's, his group of advertisers and different things like that, because these people are on the radio with us every week. And so, folks, hey, I promise you this isn't just advertising, and Paul will tell you that. I mean, these are relationships that we have with all of our folks. So I hope you will take into account all the advertisers you hear confidently say, even though they may not be mine. I know what they go through here to be on with these other hosts, and I'm telling you, we've got some great companies here. So if you're in the market for, a good system, hey, to clean up your water, you're the one going to have to take control of it. The city and county's not going to do it for you. The government's not going to do it for you. I hope you'll give Water Pros a call, 303-862-5554. And again, ask for this special here on Water Talk, $3,500. That'll get your water softener and your point-of-use RO system. So, Paul, got about 60 seconds. Any other closing thought?
Yeah, the last thing that's on the contamination list from the EPA, the disinfection byproducts, is something that they use in Denver, is chloramines. And chloramines is absolutely in the water because that's what they're used. That's the main disinfecting chemical. And it's listed to cause, eye, nose irritation, and stomach discomfort. So if you ever get up in the middle of the night, and you get a drink of water and you go back and you lay down in bed and your stomach feels uneasy, that's your water.
Wow.
So point of use reverse osmosis will fix it. And, we just got to keep, doing this to inform people, because it's the quality of water is not getting any better.
Yep.
But the other thing is just, folks, beware. Do not, $20,000 is insane. And that's just, companies should be ashamed of themselves.
For sure. Well, Paul, thank you, sir. Hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us today for Water Talk. Once again, the number 303-862-5554. And be sure you mention you heard Paul here on Water Talk, and we'd appreciate that as well. Hope everyone has a great weekend. And join us for Sportsman of Colorado tomorrow at 1. Have a great day.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of Crawford Broadcasting, the station, management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.